and welcome to the lap guide for week number 10 here on iRacing in the Porsche Cup official series, whether that be fixed or open setups. You're watching the Coach Dave Academy YouTube channel, and my name is William Chadwick. I'm going to be taking you through this lap today, as I have done for most of the season, and thank you for all the continued support as always. We're going to get into a quick hot lap alongside then a lap guide, and we'll talk about a bit more about the lap in that lap guide, and we'll kind of talk about maybe some mistakes I made, some key areas, some key pointers of this very, very tricky traditional street circuit. Hello and welcome to the lap guide. You've just watched a hot lap that nearly crashed about 15 times, but we're going to get on to what is the key things to do around this circuit in this beautiful 992 Porsche Cup car to achieve a good lap time. So, starting off, like the F1 cars do, widen out this entry just to give yourself a bit of a straighter line to brake in. Always helps. Again, I say this every lap guide, and I'm sure the people that hear it every week are annoyed at me, but we aim for a mountain brake shape like this. Build up, peak, trail out. Build up, peak, trail out. And we try and not slide the tyre at all, especially in a race stint. In a quali lap, you can afford it a little bit more, but it still will cost you, especially if it's earlier in the lap. So remembering that tyre heat or tyre surface heat is super important, and brake shape is super important, massively important in this car. You'll go a long way. Another note is that I'm on 41.1 bias, and you can also see the notation in the car on the screen as well. You should be able to see that in the hot lap. So, yep, that's my bias. That's everything. We'll get into turn number 1, building up the brake pressure and kind of carrying a bit of speed in. I find if you dip your wheels into these like rutted bits of the curb, like you got a flat section and you got the curb, and it's quite a sharp edge there. If you get your inside of your tyre into that, it can really unsettle the car. So I'd advise just to glide over the top of that and not really climb this curb too much, because I was trying to really mount it at first to like really shorten the corner and straighten it out. But there's something weird about the curbs at this track. It just feels like they've got so much less grip than Road America, for example, that we were at last. So braking in, trailing it in, short shift. So as soon as I'm starting to really get to power, that short shift really helps me flat it out and just get a really nice exit out, balancing the car on the power. Into turn number 2, or 3 actually. Again, we're having to kind of shorten this line, but also get ourselves into the next corner. So another little peak up, trail off. Again, not getting in that inside rut of the curb. Staying in 3rd, I believe. I was kind of between 3rd and 4th. Yeah, so I stayed 3rd this lap. 3rd and 4th seem both very plausible, and I think maybe in a race 4th would help you spin or stress the tyre a little bit less, but I think they both are very plausible. And as you can see, that's wall tap number 1. Not a 0x, so it would not invalidate a quali lap, but just be careful, because we do want to get as close to these walls as possible, but Skimming them like that, you are asking for trouble. But yeah, carrying as much speed out of here as possible, and just trying to carry as much speed as possible. Here, you kind of shoot and try and aim at the wall almost. You can get very, very close to this wall, but it's certainly a flat out corner, and you need to make it that. And that puts you in the position to be breaking away from the corner at the end of the lap. There we go. Right, we'll get back to where we were. Oh, I'm so professional. Right, we were here. So we're kind of breaking away from the apex of the corner. And that's obviously something that I would never advise to do if you've got the option, but because of how high speed this corner is, you kind of have to do it. So you brake, peak in a straight line, you use this part of the facing away, like going towards the barrier as your straight line braking. You start to trail it off as you turn the car in. Again, I don't like jumping on these curbs too much because they're quite slippy and the rut's quite bad. Through here, it's a super tricky section. Now, I feel like this curb on the inside is slippy, but it's not as slippy as this devil. This is the devil of this track. And honestly, I'm lucky because I think at this point here, I've got good grip and I'm never going to hit the wall. And as soon as you start to touch this little curb here, you just lose all traction. And honestly, you can end up spinning, you can end up in the wall. It's incredibly risky to run this curb. For anyone, I'd suggest, and I don't want to use iRacing as an example of whether you should or shouldn't run this line. I think it always comes down to comfortability. Being comfortable. I don't know. I'm trying to make up words. But don't run this line if you're trying to like not crash. Maybe if you're struggling a little bit with the track and not crashing too much is kind of an objective or something like this. Or maybe you're like, let's say below 3K. But obviously I think it comes down to personal preference as well and how much you are used to the track. But it is very risky, and this curb is literally ice. So just be aware of it, because you can even see, I think it's apparent to me that you can see the body language of the car kind of slide off it. It's really weird curb. Just be careful of it. It will end your race if you're not careful, and I would just avoid it in most scenarios. However, it's helped us carry a lot of speed, and then we get to the curb munching section of the lap. These curbs are much, much different to the ones we get earlier in the lap, so we can use them a lot more. You can use a little bit of this entry, but it does swiftly turn to grass before your turn-in point, so it's not majorly useful. Monster it, absolutely jump that curb and jump this one as well. Don't knock yourself out like Max Verstappen nearly did. I think that's the motto really here. And run it again close to this wall. It is a street track at heart, so you are always going to be dancing with the walls. Just be aware that it is very easy to do, but you can absolutely monster this curb, and I often do because the car can definitely deal with it. Just be careful, I think, with the rear on the exit and not turning too much. I make a large effort to straighten my line out towards that wall to make sure that I've got enough traction available for those rear tyres as possible. Coming into the final little bit of the lap, Sector 3 starts about here, I believe. Again, braking in a straight line, ramping it up, kind of that mountain braking shape. And again, first gear for the apex, I don't really like to climb the curb. Again, I feel like the curbs are a bit weird around here. And then I believe at the apex, you'll see it a bit better on board, or here. There you go. It's a shift. So as I start to get on power, shift a second, use this extra bit of runoff to straighten that initial part out, especially that 50 to 100 Ks, and then you can start to turn the car a little bit more. And I use this curb to straighten out. You've got a lot of grip at this point, so the lack of grip from this curb won't affect you really. And then you just kind of shorten your distance down towards the final corner of the track, the most famous, I think many people would say. And you just pick your braking point. Start to brake, again, number 4 board, up to about, again, to about a little bit of a peak of like 80-90%, and then you just jump in the curbs. Be aware, I think it's about, if this half of the car is over half of this curb, you get an off track, and likewise with this, if half of the car is over this half, and when I say half, I mean like half of the white, you get a slowdown or an off track. I think it's a slowdown for the second and an off track for the first. I think that's how they run it around here. But just be aware, it is pretty big send, and it does unsettle the car a bit, so just be aware when you're exiting that corner. As you can see again, it did in fact touch the wall of the champions, but thankfully not too big of a deal, and no contact zero, so it makes it a perfectly legal lap. But yeah, the other pointers really to go through for this lap here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, Canadian Grand Prix track, Montreal, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's a tricky track. It's a street track at heart. There is a bit of runoff compared to some street tracks like Long Beach, but just be aware of those curbs being a bit slippy. They definitely can catch you out. Thank you very much for watching the lap guide here for Circuit Gilles Villeneuve here at week number 10 in iRacing in the Porsche Cup car. Now, just remember some of those pointers about those really, really slippy curbs. I think it's very important to know for this circuit. And, you know, with it being a traditional street circuit, we always do get close to the walls. Well, if you've enjoyed it, please leave your feedback in the comments. I do try and read every comment or try and get to it. If not, in the Discord, which will be linked below, which you can get many answers from many of our expert lap guide specialists or setup specialists or engineers, however you want to put them. Oh, well, the multiple people there is. And subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it. Why not? Come back for another time. I'll be here for week 11. I'll be here for week 12. I might even be here for next season, hopefully. Fingers crossed if I don't get sacked. But thank you very much for watching these lap guides. I do really appreciate your support as always. And until next time, see ya.